Well, howdy everybody. This is Hellcrex, Rusty, over here at Hellcrex 26. I was tagged by Bill over there at Diecast Models, and he has a little thing going on where if you get nominated or tagged, basically it's tagging you're it. You tag 3 people to do a video about their hobbies outside of what I do. And you can see my painting table or my desk behind me with all the stuff stacked up on it is my workspace where I do all my work, painting miniatures and doing all the other hobby stuff. And so it is, what are the 3 hobbies that you do outside of what you really enjoy? So first of all, I enjoy painting miniatures and playing games. So that's probably the first and foremost of my biggest hobby. But I do have 3 other ones which are basically related to since I've been a kid. A young lad that I've always been into is, well, the first one is hunting and fishing. If anybody knows me knows that I love to fish. I love to do all that fun stuff. Ever since I've been knee-high to a grasshopper, when my grandfather and my parents or dad would take us out fishing, and we lived in Minnesota. In northern Minnesota, my grandparents had a house on Lake Edward, north of Brainerd, and we would spend all of our summers down at his place with my grandparents, and we would go out practically every day you could to go fishing, and we always had these big giant coolers, if you know the big ones that you carry around, put stuff full. We basically would fish and fish and fish until we filled those things up, and then once they're full, it's like, okay, we got the whole complete freezer is full, so we're going to fill up the enough to fill up all the coolers full of frozen fish, and that means it's time to go home. So that's when we learned that we don't have any more space for us to put fish in. We can only eat so much a day or during the week, and we have to take it home with us, go back to the house, put the farm up there in Minnesota and go to town on it. And so my brother Al and I would go back home and take everything with us, and then hopefully fill up the freezer there. And we had that other interesting thing was about it was that we had basically our own lake up there, and there was only one access road to it, and that went through where we lived. And so I would go out there and fish by myself, and one of my brothers would go with me. We'd go out in the lake and go fishing every day. That was pretty much as soon as it warmed up and the ice was off the lake, I'd be out there on a boat and do the morning chores and rush out there and go fishing. And sometimes my dad, if he during the week ends when he wasn't working, would go out with me too, and we had a lot of good times catching northerns, all the big stuff, and that was all the fun thing. Now the other thing is growing up in northern Minnesota, we hunt deer, we had partridge, grouse, pheasant, you name it. Occasionally there was a bear would come through or something like that. And so you'd go out hunting. So I learned from a young age to go do a lot of hunting. And I just want to show you something. One year, I think it was 92, I decided to keep a tail feather out of every bird that I shot that season. And this is it. These are all pheasant feathers. This is just one season of pheasants that I shot. And one fell out, but I'd go out and every weekend, every moment you had any bit of free time, it's like, I'm out, I gotta go hunting, and go hit the woods and go over the fields or something. And that's something I really enjoy. Also, it's like bow hunting, with bow. And in about 95, I picked up black powder, started black powder hunting. Well, actually, in late 90s, 80s, I started black powder rifle. Then I picked up black powder shotgun, started hunting pheasant with that exclusively, so made it a little more challenging. And it looks like my battery might be dying, so I think what I'll do is a pause right here and change batteries. Alright, we're back. New battery. It was about ready to die. So after the second hobby, after hunting, is basically rock collecting. So one of the nice things about growing up in Minnesota was that every spring you had this lovely thing you had to do is pick rock. And if you don't know what picking rock is that you go into the fields, the frost from the winter time would push all the stuff up, so you have all these rocks that are buried underground would be pushed up, so it's like growing a new crop of rocks. And every year you'd go through and you're picking up these rocks, and every once in a while you go, that's a cool one, so I'd put that one offside, throw it in someplace on the back of the tractor or something to hang on to for later. And so you have the tractor going along and you have the big, like a bucket or a wagon on the back that's either for hay or something of that nature, and you just throw the rocks up on top of it and then go off and dump it someplace. Usually we had a big massive pile of rocks someplace that you could go through, and you have all these different kinds. And so that was something I would do, is I just started collecting different kinds of rocks. And over the years, you get all these different ones, like this one here. Basically, as a result of that, I had a really big interest in it from basically school on. When we had our first earth science class, I really got into it. And it's like, oh, I love this, I like this. And then when I got into college, I changed I was originally, my major was chemical engineer, and I decided after 1 year, I took a geology class my second year, and it's like, you know what, that reminds me, I like this more. So I ended up going and become a geologist or scientist, basically. And this one here, as I can see it here, that is a specimen that I picked up in Colorado. When I was stationed in Colorado in the Army, I used to go all over the place and go up, climb up the different mountains and stuff. They have trails everywhere. And you'd go hiking over the weekend and go this trailhead, and I'd climb up, and every once in a while you'd come across really cool stuff, and you'd throw it in your bag and bring it back. And this is one I found, which is ammonite, smoke quartz, a little bit of mica. What else was in this thing? There's regular quartz, feldspar. You got a whole bunch of stuff that's in it. Basically, it probably came out of a pocket that was busted up when the mountain cracked it open, and it came down someplace. So I found that just laying in a rock pile. Now here's an Iowa sample. Iowa's known for its geodes over in southeast Iowa. We have tons of geodes, which is a little nodular pocket where you would get all these crystals form inside a little pocket, and then you pick it up and you get this round nodule, and you're like, something's rattling there. And you can hit it with a hammer and crack it open like an egg, and you find these little geodes inside of them. And here's another one, larger one that I picked up. My friend Scott, he's a real big rock hound. He does jewelry and all that stuff. Knight's Pantry. He has lots of stuff that he's picked up over the years. He's really big into it. His area of expertise is not even geology. He's just a rock hound, and he loves getting into it. Then you got, I collect these eggs too. You get all these mineral eggs that people carve into egg shapes, alabasters and all that kind of really cool stuff that you can pick up. And here's don't roll away. There you go. Stay. Here's one this one's from Morocco. It is basically an egg that's carved out of a fossil bed, and you can see all the fossils inside of it. And it's really cool. I have a whole bunch of stuff like this one here that I just collected up. Here's another one. This is a coral. This is from Iowa. Silurian age. It's like a big horn coil. It's the same thing that you would find today in any coral reef, except it's, you know, been fossilized. And it goes together kind of like that, one big piece. There was a time I was going to take these corals and stuff. I have a whole bunch of them. They're scattered throughout the house. I've still got a bunch of boxes from my times when going out in the field and just finding stuff in quarries or whatever, and when you're doing surveys and stuff. And what I wanted to do is get a rock saw and cut them into little thin slabs and then make a chessboard. So it's you get some black some type of black stone for the black hexes, and then I'd use corals as the white hexes. And that was something I was planning on doing someday. Maybe I'll get around to it and then build a wooden frame around it out of something, you know, using a router and stuff. So that's basically one of the things I enjoy is rocks, geology. Every time we go on vacation, it's always rock geology related. I always like to go someplace where I can see stuff that's really interesting and see how the nature has created that area. So that's kind of one of the things I really like doing. Now, one of the other things, my third hobby is let's turn this on a second. That'd be the fourth hobby that you're going to see in a second. But my fourth real big hobby is astronomy. So I do have a minor in astronomy, and it goes back to when I was a kid in Minnesota. It's like you didn't have any light pollution. I didn't know what light pollution was until I moved to Iowa, because we moved down by the Quad Cities, Davenport area in 82, I think it was. And you get so used to having constantly clear skies all the time, or, you know, light pollution. And come down, I was like, wow, where'd the stars go? And that was even bad light pollution. But I always had a big love for going out under the stars. And as a result, you know, I have all kinds of, I got telescopes and stuff. I don't have them here because they wouldn't fit in the screen. But I'll just break out a couple of these eyepieces that I have. Now you think some individuals talk about gaming as being expensive. Well, $100 or so for $150 for a miniature from like GW, and that's like, yeah, okay, you can spend $1,000 or more on an eyepiece. Now you get into some of these really nice eyepieces. This is a 2-incher, so it has a big 2-inch. You know, it's got a big aperture on it, so you can get some decent eye relief on it. And now this is what, a 25 millimeter lens on the top. So you put it in a telescope. So imagine how big one of my telescopes is. This is the one I use in my 6-inch refractor. And I got a 6-inch Meade refractor, so it's huge. It's massive, big, and it looks like a big rocket launcher. And when it sits up on its tripod, I got a Celestron tripod, and that thing is massive. You're talking 100-something pounds just for a tripod. So one of the reasons you gotta stay in shape is so you can move your equipment around. So that is a 25 millimeter one. Now they put in these nice little cases here. And it's just screw top, which is cool. And this one here is another Explorer. This is an 18. So it's a little bit smaller on the top, so it's 18 across. And you still got the big hole in the bottom. But yeah, you get into some of the, those eyepieces, you know, $3, $4, $5, $6, $700,000 for one eyepiece, and you can spend $10,000, $20,000 just on one telescope alone, you know, or you could spend $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 just for the mount to go with it. So that's a pretty expensive hobby to have if you want really good equipment, and not necessarily have to have good equipment. You can get by with the stuff out there that's really inexpensive, and just enjoy using Mark 1 eyeball for looking up into the sky. But if you want to see any deep sky objects and stuff like that, you need a telescope. And when I got hooked into astrophotography at the same time, and the with astrophotography, I would go out and hook my cameras. I used to have like film cameras and stuff. You'd hook them up to the telescope and go to town and spend hours guiding your telescope. And when we were up at the observatory, I used to, in college, you know, we had a 16-inch reflector, and that I was able to use because I had the keys to the observatory and I did research and stuff. Did some research on a variable star, you know, and got that put into one of the, back in the 80s, one of variable star organization. Published my research on that, and you know, more information on what's going on with everything. You know, there's so many out there that, you know, nowadays with everything computerized, it might be a lot easier to do stuff like that, but at the time it was kind of time consuming. And so with using film camera nowadays, everything's digital. You can hook your digital camera up, which I'm using right now. I've taken digital pictures and stuff through my telescope, my 6-inch, and it's just like if you ever look at, you know, guys doing sports photography or long range photography, just imagine on a larger scale. It's just huge. So you got some things about 5 foot long, you know, that on a tripod that you hook up and you take your photos with. So you can do terrestrial or celestial, either or. Now behind me is kind of like my 4th hobby, because my ham operator. This is my ham shack right here. So when I'm sitting there doing painting, sometimes if I'm not watching a YouTube video, I will get on every once in a while and make some calls and stuff, talk to somebody or listen to somebody, and make a few calls, just, you know, keep up with I'm an amateur extra in ham radio, which is the highest level you can go for getting a license for going out there and talking with people. So I could talk anywhere in the world. I've made contacts everywhere around the world to people using digital or voice. You know, it doesn't matter. So it's kind of a fun thing I like to do every once in a while, and I've been doing that for quite a few years. So that is my hobbies that I like to do, and basically I have to tag 3 people. And if you watch this long, I was thinking the 3 people I should tag to talk about their hobbies and stuff like that. I'm thinking maybe Palmer might be a good one over at Heresy Productions. They're #1. And he hasn't done a video in a while, so this might be a good opportunity to get him back in the habit of doing another video. Now they're #1. Palmer, you got a video you got to make. And I'm thinking we've talked to Dan Booman a few times, and I know Dan's kind of busy, but this is a good opportunity for him to put a little more time in front of the camera and talk about his hobbies and what he likes to do. So Dan, tag, you're it. And let's see, who should we do for our 3rd one? Let's see. I think, who should we do? Yeah, I've had somebody in mind. Now I can't think of it. But let's go with like Wargaming with Gary. Yeah, Gary, you're it. Why don't you put a video out? You know, have you done something similar to why you got into the hobby? You know, this would be a good one for you to talk about your other hobbies and stuff. I know you kind of talked about it before, but you know, this might be an opportunity to talk about things you like doing in life, you know, other than, you know, painting and working with miniatures and wargaming, you know, that kind of stuff. And maybe an honorable mention go out to Knight's Pantry. You know, Scott, maybe you wouldn't mind hopping into the bandwagon here. So I'm going to do 4 here. Honorable mention, number 4, Scott. So hope you guys don't mind me doing this to you, but it's a great opportunity to talk about a little bit about yourself and getting involved in, or why you do other things when you're not working in painting stuff or other stuff. And I have other hobbies too. That's just not my only one. I like to keep busy. So there you go. Hope you guys like it, and we will talk with you later.